Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey, here once again with another video on Superman and Lois. I guess season 4, but I guess just the show as a whole. So as we should all know, by now at least, well at least yesterday when I'm uploading this video, we had the finale for not just season 4 of Superman and Lois, but the entire series, the series finale. And oh boy, it was, quite an emotional one. And of course, it just doesn't bring the end of Superman and Lois as a show, but DC TV as a whole on the CW. And some would argue completely, because it's like, okay, well, we're getting TV shows that are DC, but they're really just a part of the cinematic universe to complement that. So it's like really like a core DC TV, feel. It might be gone. Like that's the end of an era. And if so, what a run. But the final moments of this series were very emotional, and you would have to be made of stone or poo, maybe, I don't know, to have not at least welled up while watching it. But it wasn't a bunch of just, final moments worth really breaking down and relating to the comics like I would have done with some other shows. But it was more diving into like in regards to this video, I want to dive into why the showrunners chose the moments that they did and how they went about it. So in this video, we are going over an interview from Deadline between the two showrunners for Superman and Lois of Todd Helbing, who has been the showrunner since season 1. He's one of the people that created the show alongside Greg Berlanti, and then Brent Fletcher, who became co-showrunner, I think last season, I think in season 3. And just a bonus thing before we start this, apparently, according to the people who got press copies of the series finale, they said there was a decently sized scene that was deleted from their version compared to what aired on the CW. So I guess that scene could appear on the Blu-ray whenever that releases for those that are interested, like they did for season 1. Didn't episode 1 or didn't the pilot or the first 2 episodes or something of season 1 have extended episodes that were different if you watch them on like HBO Max or something compared to the CW, I think that's right. So keep your eye for that, I guess, when the Blu-ray rocks around. Or maybe if you have, you live internationally, like I think maybe in Australia, I might have to look, because I'm recording this before it's available on the Australian streaming service that Superman and Lois airs on. But I might see if the extended version's on there, because it might be on the international markets. But I'll let you know in maybe another video if that's the case. But of course, throughout the video, be sure to let me know in the comment section down below your various thoughts and everything we go over in this video. Always curious to hear what you guys are thinking. And of course, if you're going to enjoy the video, I want to show your support, drop a like. Takes 2 seconds. And just quickly, I think I left out one question because to shorten down the video. So the link to the interviews in the description down below if you want to read everything. But I think I just left out one question because it was a bit lengthy and it wasn't overly relevant. But Deadline starts off by asking, what were some of the goals overall with season 4 and how did you set out to accomplish them with just 10 episodes? And Todd Helbing starts by saying, obviously we initially thought we would go a little bit more, but it gave us an opportunity to really tell us a succinct story. The whole show from the beginning, the big theme is families. So we wanted to start at the season at Death of Superman. We knew it was going to get pretty dark, but slowly start to inject the light into it and really see what Superman stands for, what Lois Lane stands for, and what the family stands for. It was such a joy to have Michael Cudlitz as Lex Luthor, and he was such a good villain to have opposite the family with the final season. As this family unit grows and as a secret is exposed, Smallville comes to Superman's aid. You see the people in his corner get bigger and bigger, while Lex's gets smaller and smaller. Ultimately, with the final episode, we just wanted to say something really powerful and speak to what Superman stands for, and really just have this big, meaningful moment for people that when they think about the show, when they finish watching it a week or a month later, stays with them. And Brent Fletcher goes on to add, what is a life worth? What is it worth pursuing? Superman is such an iconic hero, but at the end of the day, he's a man. Hope and family were the things that really resonated with him, and we think are the cornerstone of what he stood for on our show and what Lois stood for on our show. And I think that's what really makes the show such an easy one to connect to, is that, as you said, it's about family, it's about love, it's about hope, it's about friendship. It's really simple things in life. And I think that's probably a really great thing to or a perfect way to label the show, which some might say is insulting, but I think is a massive compliment. It is a simple show. It's not trying to be this overly complex thing. Sure, they'll take something from the comics and flip it on its head, like we've seen for the past 3 seasons with Bizarro, who then became Doomsday, who then became, this other thing. But it's still simple at the core of the show. It's not trying to be this overly complex thing, which you just have to appreciate and give your kudos to. Deadline goes on to ask, why did you decide to chart Clark and Lois's entire life, closing out the story entirely instead of leaving it open-ended with Brent Fletcher starting? We were told at one point that we were the only live-action show that really got to conclude his story, so we felt that was a real opportunity. For us, there's so many questions that you have about what it's like to live that kind of life. We were doing Death of Superman. That's what we were going to sell to the audience. But it's actually a mislead because the Death of Superman doesn't happen until the end of episode 10. And we felt like it was to show that that was a life well lived. What are the auspices of a life well lived? It's hope, joy, family, and good. All these things that he is. It was a hard thing to compact, but we felt that that montage could give a little window into that and give a little inspiration. We are all mortal, and maybe there's a beauty to our mortality that even Superman faces, so we thought it was a kind of a neat thing. It was something that we were excited about, and so we followed that muse. With Helbing adding, in the history of Superman, he is in a lot of ways immortal, right? He's going to live forever, he's going to outlive Lois, he's going to outlive his boys. But in this version, with what happened to him, he wasn't going to do that anymore. So it just felt like, instead of having more questions for the audience about, oh, I wonder what he was like when he was old, it's like, let's just show it to them. We've never seen that. I think it's really moving in a way that's unexpected. Those are the best kind of endings. And I have to just 100% agree with that. Even just talking about that, even just thinking back to that ending montage or, final 10 minutes of it was, you get emotional because it was so perfectly well done. And it just embraces Superman in a different light, but not like a negative light. It's not like, oh, look, he's old, he's Superman, oh, he's not super anymore. They're not focusing in on that. They're showing the benefits of him living that long life and the family that it builds around him. I think the fact that they highlight the grandchildren and stuff, because we think, oh, they're showing just these two kids throughout this show is a different element of Superman. Well, what about when you show the further point of that, which goes on to the legacy side of that? Because you got to remember, sure, Jordan and Jonathan are there, they have their powers and stuff like that, but what about those grandkids? How do we know that they don't have powers? There's the ongoing legacy of Superman, and we didn't just get told that it's going to happen, we got to see it happen. So I think that sort of ending thing, or that, whether it's just one specific moment or that final rough 10 minutes or whatever it was the perfect way to close this show. Because I think at the end of the day, sure, the show is about family, but with family comes legacy, and I think they nailed it. Was there any pressure associated with that, considering that you are one of the only, if not the only, property to showcase Superman's life in that way, with Todd Helbing saying, it's Superman and Lois Lane and Lex Luthor. They're these iconic characters, and so that inherently has some pressure. You don't want to be the version of the property that messed it up. To have the opportunity to be one of the only shows to actually conclude it in the way that we want to, there was the pressure to stick the landing and do something different. But there's that pressure, and then you just sort of have to acknowledge it and then just do your job. So we always just approach it like, let's just tell the most human, hopeful, realistic version of the story and let the chips fall where they may. And we've talked about it before, but Todd Helbing said he used his own relationship with his family and specifically his sons to sort of craft this thing. So it obviously comes with like a very, very like personal angle to him in regards to not wanting to mess it up as well. But as we said earlier on, Superman Lois at the core of it is a very simple show, not in regards to like, oh, simple-minded, but it doesn't try to be too overly complex. It lets things just play out from A to B to C, and when you can have the zany stuff go on, the zany stuff happens, just like in your normal life. Something zany will happen, you'll be like, hold on, was that correct? Did I see a squirrel running down the street with a hot dog? Like, you get weird stuff like that, that's just not normal. But most of your day is regular, it's pretty simple, and I think they've done that with this show, and I think that's why it stands out, funnily enough, because a lot of properties in the comic book, realm do try to be over the top. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but when you're something like Superman that can be over the top, like I think we're going to see in James Gunn's Superman, he's very definitely going for the very like unrealistic version of Superman, if you want to put it. You get that comparison point, and that's where you can stand out because everything else is trying to be that next level up. So, and that's not a detriment to those other, or like a negative to those other properties, but it can be something that you embrace, which is what Superman and Lois did as a show with Todd Helbing's leadership. And the two final things here are sort of like one thing, but they were split up and it's worth talking about them separately. So Deadline asked, was there anything anything you wish you'd gotten to fit into the finale, so specifically the series finale, that you couldn't, with Brent Fletcher saying, I would have liked to have had more characters come back. I think Todd agrees. If we had more time and money, we would have loved Tal Rho. Superman's brother was a great character for us. We love him, and we would have liked the opportunity to have acknowledged that. We would have liked to have had Sam Blaine, maybe seeing him in Lois's final vision, but we just didn't have the time and resources to get people back for that. So we had to pick our shots and acknowledge it without maybe all the bells and whistles, and try to do it in a satisfying way, with Todd Helbing adding, it would have been nice to get Jenna Doohan, aka Lucy Lane, back. That was a struggle we had the whole season. I think Todd Helbing might have mentioned that after like the episode that Sam Lane died or something in another interview, that they were going to try and do that and they couldn't really make it work, at least in regards to when Sam Lane was like that specific episode where he dies. But maybe they were trying to get her back for like one of the final episodes in the season, if not specifically the finale, like that question is there. But yeah, like I think I don't think there's any other characters like specifically where I'm like, oh, you know, like in regards to Superman and Lois as a show, like I can't think, but the only one that I saw people mentioning, which I don't know if it would have worked necessarily, unless it was maybe for like John Henry's wedding, was like Diggle, but once again, it'd have to be worth it for like the money and everything like that. And the final question, a bit of a broader one in regards to like same type of question as before, but a bit broader. They said, what about in the season as a whole? With Helbing starting to say, we tend to end the season while we set up a new villain. It would have been fun to explore Brainiac a little bit more and go further with that character. I think we would have made a hard pitch to DC to get Darkseid in there somehow, which I don't know if they would have said yes, but we were going to try to come up with something super cool and see if we can do that. It's hard to say now, but Darkseid would have been like my favorite thing to do for sure, with Brent Fletcher adding, I think knowing the resources and the time and everything, we knew what we had and where we were going pretty early, so then it was just a matter of addressing that in a way that we were satisfied with. The other wants and dreams kind of fade out after a time because you're so focused on delivering the road that you've chosen. So there are some other things I would have liked to do with more seasons, but at the end of the day, I wanted to make sure that this season I felt was something special. I think we're both happy with how it turned out. So the Darkseid thing is pretty crazy, but I think this is more like, you know, if they, you know, like what Todd Helbing sort of saying there, like, sure, like usually they set up a villain roughly where they're going to go with a new villain and stuff as they head towards the end of a season or something like that. But obviously the show is coming to an end, so you don't really want to do that. The one that they do sort of set up is Brainiac, like he's sort of saying there. In regards to Darkseid, it would have been very interesting to see like what a Superman or Lois version of Darkseid would have been. Like you'd think he'd still be this like big threat, but they might have put a bit of a twist on it in regards to maybe how he's presented, or specifically what his goal is, or maybe specifically where he's originating from. And that would have been very interesting. Maybe there's another interview out there where maybe Todd Helbing might dive into that specifically, or maybe someone might see this interview and hit him up, you know, whenever it might be in the near future, and ask him specifically, like, hey, what would you have done with him? Do you have any other plans that you would have done with him? How would you have set him up specifically? That would have been very interesting. But with what Brent Fletcher says there, like, yeah, because they knew this was the final season, like, I think, like, you know, the cutoffs there. You're not going to really be trying to make too many plans and doing too many, like, teasers there. I think there could have been, like, maybe the only thing they could have included in the finale was maybe something with Milton Fine to really overly emphasize his future. Or maybe it could have been that montage or something like that at the end. But at the end of the day, I don't really have too many qualms with that. I'm pretty fine with how they ended it, might I say. But I think this season was pretty full. Like, I don't know if there was room for really anyone else to come in and stuff like that. So like Brent Fletcher says there, like, I'm pretty satisfied with how it turned out. But yeah, that's the end of this interview from the two showrunners with Deadline. As I said, it pretty much gives you a lot of insight in regards to why they chose to do certain things come the end of the show, especially that final montage showing like the older Superman and letting him age to eventually him dying. Obviously, one of the best endings, if not the best ending you'll get in a comic book show. So it was really cool to get that insight. There might be more interviews that come out that maybe dive into like more fun ideas or like things that like didn't happen or something like that. If that happens, we might do a video on it, or I might try and do like a like put them all together like from like 5 different places that did interviews and get like the best questions and answers and stuff like that. If that happens, I don't know how many interviews Todd Helbing or Brent Fletcher or even like the cast and crew did and stuff for the show or for the finale, like following the show. So yeah, we'll wait in the next couple of days and stuff like that. But thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, it would be awesome if you could drop a like or to show support. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on everything we went over in this video. Always curious to read what you guys are thinking. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and I will catch you guys later. Goodbye.